What I don't have information on is what happened like before the turnaround, why we have the reputation we do, that kind of thing.
Okay. Do you want me to talk about like the reconstitution and all that?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay. Okay, let me think for a sec. Like, how much information do you want? I can go for a while.
Anything you want to give me, because
Okay.
even if I don't use like video wise, I can use
Okay.
like the actual information.
Okay.
Did you want notes? Note paper, write it
No.
down. Okay.
Okay. I started teaching here the 2007-2008 school year. I was non-traditional teacher, worked in a professional career, went back and got my master's, and then got a job here at Harding because I knew some people that had worked here, and I did a couple of practicums here. And when I got hired, people were like, good luck, like that's the worst school in Des Moines. And I got here and it was like pretty obvious it was pretty well earned reputation. So I think like the biggest struggles when I first started that year was very much like low expectations for students from the staff, a belief that students couldn't do anything, and very much like a staff versus student mentality. And it had just escalated to the point where really the building was completely out of control because we didn't have any leadership. So like for example, my first year I had a kid pull a knife in my classroom. I had a kid throw a desk at me. I had multiple times where I sent kids to the office to go see the vice principal, the dean, and they were sent back to me with a note saying, don't send this kid down to class or down to my office anymore. I'm tired of dealing with him. That year, our principal was fired or relieved of her duties in March because she had basically given up and stopped coming to the building. And it was very much like a walk in, shut your door, get through the day, and get out of here as quick as possible. I can remember that first year at conferences. We had conferences in the gym, and there were like multiple instances where like teachers and parents almost came to blows because there was no collaboration, nobody was working together. I almost quit in October just because like I was super stressed out and I just couldn't handle it. My first day teaching, my block one, I started with like 25 kids. And I thought I was like set. I had like all my desks set up and stuff. And then by the end of block one, I had 33 because they just kept bringing them and dropping them off. And like when they brought like kid number 32 and 33, I looked at the counselor, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do with them? And she's like, I don't know, it's your job, figure it out. So there's very much this like culture of just do whatever you want, you know, just don't make my life any more difficult. Yeah, very much on your own, isolated. I was observed that first year. Sorry, I don't know if you want to ask questions or not.
No, I'm just interjecting.
So my first year I was observed by my principal once for like 10 minutes, and that entire time she was on her cell phone, and like literally crap was like happening in my room. Things were falling apart, and she just sat there on her cell phone, and then she wrote me like this glowing review about how phenomenal I was. And so it was definitely like, it was really hard, you know, especially when you got to like November, December, January, February, like those 4 months were really, really difficult, to the point where I attempted to leave, because I was like, there's no way I can continue teaching there. I accepted a job in August at Dow Center Grimes, and then was blocked from leaving the district by Human Resources because it was too close to the start of the school year. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't do another year. But Tom Ahart, who was hired that year, came in as our principal, and basically came in with this idea of like, we got to instantaneously change things. So Tom came in, and I think like the thing that he did that really helped was he just set high expectations. And I can like vividly remember him saying like, we're going to set the bar, and our families, our kids, our staff is going to meet it because they have to. And so it was just a lot more expectations of students. You know, the kind of stuff that was allowed to happen in the past, like kids could get into 2 fights in the day and still be in class. Like Tom at least set the expectation of, if you do that here, you have to leave. And so I think that's kind of where the turnaround came. And then through reconstitution, which was like a huge process that is probably a whole different subject, but we reconstituted, in 2009, 2010. It was my third year teaching. We replaced half the staff. So half the staff was accessed out to other schools in Des Moines, and we hired new people. And then the next year, which would have been like 2010, 2011, about 80% of the people that weren't accessed the first time chose to leave on their own. And I think it was just because there were expectations for staff. And in the past, like a lot of teachers, because our leadership was so poor, they pretty much just did whatever they want. And they could talk to kids however they want, you know, and there wasn't any expectations about how you behave as a professional, what you do with instruction, how you work with kids. And it got really, really hard for people to realize, like, this is really tough work and I have to really, really try. And then, so like now we're at the point in this school year, this is my 8th year here. I've probably been here longer than all but like 2 or 3 staff members. Maybe only, let's see, maybe just 2. I think just Kevin and Luke are the people who've been here longer. And so I think that's part of what's added to our reputation is the fact that we've had so many staff members that have left under poor circumstances that haven't been here through some of the positive changes we've made, that that word is kind of spread out throughout, like, oh, you don't want to go there. And I mean, it was legit. I mean, we had days that we had 25 kids OSS. You know, there was one year where we were having really bad gang issues in school, and so we had to go to, you know, if you repped anything, drew a symbol or hand sign, it was 5 days OSS. You know, so we were really racking up, you know, out of school suspension time.
How did the district respond to that?
I think the district saw Tom's vision. And then when Jake came aboard, that was Tom's 2nd year here. And so I think that the district looked at it as, at least you're trying to do something. You know, I think before it was just like this feeling of hopelessness. And I can like remember Tom telling me when he took over, like, for example, like we were like $28,000 in the hole, you know, just because like there was no management, you know, it was just so dysfunctional, the building, not just in the classroom, but at every level. And so I think like the district at least looked at that as, well, okay, like if these are the bumps in the road we have to take to institute a positive change, then we're okay with that. One thing that it, you know, in going back to that mindset where we used to be, I can remember sitting in a meeting my first year when we had been identified as a persistently low achieving school. I think that was maybe our 2nd or 3rd year of that status, and our principal at the time being like, this is great because now we get more money. And I was like, I don't think it's great. You know, we've been
Not the direction you want to move.
low achieving, but it was like, no, but that's what our kids need. Our kids need more money and more resources, and we need all this because of the community we serve. And so I think like as much as the kids were a part of the problem and the norms that they were bringing to the building, like our mindset was really, really low. And like there was just a lot of like, well, that kid can't do that, or this kid's not going to be able, or these kids can't do that. I think we've gotten better about that, but I think sometimes we still fall back into that mindset of, well, I don't know if that'll work. Yeah. You know, and the truth is that every time that we've pushed and we've raised the bar, like our kids have gotten there and our staff has gotten there. So
When I moved here, it was the first day we were moving, and I was going to sign my papers down at HR. Like we had taken our U-Haul here, so neither Anthony or I had cars, and so I was taking a cab downtown, and I said, "Oh, I'm going, you know, to the Des Moines Public School like HR place," and he's like, "Oh, okay, I know where that is." And he's like, "So you just got hired?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What school?" I said, "Harding." And he goes, "Oh, did you bring your brass knuckles?" And I was like, no, and I don't think they're going to be that bad. And he's like, oh, well, I remember when I was in school, and like he was going back 20 plus years about how terrible Harding kids were and the reputation they had.
But I think like that's the hard part is for all the positive stuff that we do, you know, we have one thing, like our girls get into a fight at a volleyball game, which whether they started it or not, we have all this years of baggage that it's really hard for people to shake that.
Well, and so when that happens, they're like, oh, so nothing really has changed.
Yeah, same old Harding. And that's one thing, like, I don't think our kids are bad kids at all. I think that our kids have grown up having different norms in terms of like what's acceptable, and that's like it's almost like a cultural thing for them. You know, they don't understand that when you're at school, there's certain expectations, and I think sometimes as a staff we don't realize that our expectations for kids and how school should be isn't the same as theirs or their parents or whatever. But that's not just a Harding thing. I see that at other schools in Des Moines, you know. And so I think part of Harding's problem is if you go back, you know, to like the 1980s, this was like a predominantly like white neighborhood, you know, and all of a sudden in 15 years, it became like this high minority, high ELL population. And like we weren't prepared to deal with that. So that established some of it, but then it happened here in this neighborhood before it spread out to Meredith and Callanan and Hoyt and those places. And now it's, you know, spread to like West Des Moines, you know, like I know people that teach in West Des Moines that are having the same conversations about we're not prepared to deal with these kind of norms or work with these kind of kids. So it's almost like we were ahead of the curve, you know, like it just happened here first.
Do you think that, like, is there some sort of education or something we can do for pre-service teachers to prepare them for that, or is it really like you have to experience it?
I think one thing that we did in the past that was really, really powerful was we did a tour of the neighborhood and we did home visits. And, you know, I think especially that almost all of us as staff, we don't live in the neighborhood. You know, we grew up probably in different situations that it's not day-to-day reality for us like it is for some of our kids. And I think that's kind of the piece that we're missing. You know, and I don't think it's anything about like cultural awareness or anything like that. I think it's just about being realistic that like these kids have other stuff going on in their life, you know, and everybody's got challenges, but their challenges are different than what you or I probably faced when we were 13 years old, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was having a talk with a kid today that's like, he was really, really struggling and having a really bad day. And he's like, well, I didn't sleep last night because mom's boyfriend was over and they were fighting, and then we're late to school, and it bothers me when I'm late. And, you know, it's just those kind of things that, for whatever reason, like those things happen at every school, but I just feel like because of our population who we serve, they're more frequent for us. And so we have to be more responsive to it, because it's not one kid that's dealing with that, it's 20. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and how do we still do that with holding high expectations for our kids? The other thing I should probably say too, thinking about like this instructional piece, is not only was our behavior bad, but our scores were awful. Like our Iowa test basic skill scores were atrocious, and it was purely an instructional issue, I believe, because there was no like instructional coaching. There was, you know, it was survival.
No accountability for teachers.
Yeah, like I couldn't worry about what my learning objectives were or any of that, because I was just trying to keep my class under control. And at the same time, like I thought I was doing a good job, like I thought I was doing good lessons, but I hadn't had like the support and the help and the professional development to show me better ways to do things. And so I think that's really where we started moving the needle, was when we got a lot better at instruction. Like it allowed us to like kind of shift the focus to like, there's a reason we go to school here. And we spent a lot of time talking about behavior first, and the behavior first has been important, but I think sometimes like we've missed how important the instruction part has been. I think we got to do a better job of tying those together. So
cool. Thanks.
Yeah.